Hey everybody, Kathleen Henderson here for our last day of Master Your Metabolism. Today is Friday, day 5, and we have one final DIY for this Facebook Live. I'm actually going to make 2 things for you. I feel like a cooking show now. Hasn't this been fun this week? The first thing we're going to make is a healthy fudge recipe. Hey Sarah! It is chocolate peanut butter fudge, or the recipe that was posted in our group this morning said freezer fudge. You can call it lots of different things, but I'm actually going to make the recipe from my blog. It is very similar to the recipe that I posted this morning in our group. I did post this recipe too. I'm going to use peanut butter. You can also use almond butter. You can use any kind of nut butter. I haven't tried it with sun butter, but it's worth a shot. It would probably work well for those of you who have to avoid nuts. We're using coconut oil, cacao powder, honey, vanilla extract, and salt. And then I'm going to add, you can optionally add, you can sprinkle some things on top like shredded coconut or chopped nuts. And then we're also going to make a fun apple sandwich with peanut butter and granola. Excuse me. So let's get started. I'm going to keep sipping on my water, trying to stay up on my hydration goals, get all my water in for the day. Okay, so this fudge recipe is it's healthy from the standpoint that we are using natural sweeteners. I like to use raw local honey. We buy it by these huge 80-ounce jars from a local health food store, and this is raw wildflower honey, but they actually have a variety of honeys that they sell at the store, at the health food store. So we kind of rotate between a few different kinds. It's raw and unfiltered. That is not the same. Hi, Nanette. Raw local unfiltered honey is definitely not on the same par with like the little squeezy bears that you buy at the grocery store. So I'm sure you probably know all about this already, but you can look at more information about how to find a good honey. But basically, you should be able to find in your general area someone who is selling local honey that is raw and unfiltered. And that kind of honey is actually really good for your health. It has a lot of health benefits. I've heard all sorts of things and read about how it can help with allergies. It has specific nutrients that are good for the body. It has, what was I just going to say? Oh, it's antimicrobial and all of that. It has a lot of really amazing properties, but remember that we're talking about raw local honey. We're not talking about the kind that comes in the little bear bottles at the grocery store. So let's see here. I'm actually going to use the food processor today because yeah, it's almost impossible to mix this by hand. So I'm going to use the food processor. We're going to use peanut butter. I'm using peanut butter. I talked about this the other day when we were talking about, what were we talking about? I don't remember which recipe we were talking about. Almond butter. I think the other day when we made the energy balls, we used almond butter. You could also use peanut butter for that. And I mentioned that peanut butter is controversial. We went for a while without it and we ate only almond butter, but I've started stocking peanut butter again. I decided not to be paranoid about it. We just make sure to get an organic peanut butter. This Santa Cruz brand is a good one. We shop at Wegmans here in Northern Virginia, and I like the Wegmans store brand. They have an organic peanut butter. I prefer mine crunchy. But anyway, so I'm going to start adding the ingredients. I have them measured out here. I'm making if you look at the recipe that I'm using right now from my blog, I'm doubling this recipe. So when I mention the amounts, just keep in mind that this is a doubled recipe. This recipe is a favorite at our house. In fact, it's one of my husband's, Greg, Mr. Native Texan. If you follow me on my blog at Yankee Homestead, it's one of his favorite, like all-time favorite treat recipes. He will request it, and it's really simple to make. It's simple enough to make that my kids can make it. My 12-year-old and my 8-year-old like to make it, and they like to play around with adding different things on top. So okay, peanut butter. I'm adding 1 cup of my organic crunchy peanut butter. was just talking about you. I'm making peanut butter fudge. No, it's your favorite. Okay, so 1 cup of, there he is, 1 cup of peanut butter, and then 1/2 cup of coconut oil. I'm going to add this, and then I'll show you my coconut oil source. I think maybe it's better if I stand over here. Okay, there's the coconut oil, 1/2 cup of coconut oil. This is the coconut oil that we use at our house. It's from Tropical Traditions. I will post all of the purchasing links for everything that I'm mentioning and using right now in case you are interested in stocking up on any of these things. I'm not going to go on and on about this right now. You can actually read about this more on my blog. Hey, Denise. Hi, Kathy. Coconut oil is a superfood. We use it for so many things at my house, so that's why I actually buy it by the 5-gallon bucket usually, and then we just refill our 1-gallon bucket. It's important to find a good source of coconut oil. This is actually virgin coconut oil. I don't always buy virgin. Sometimes I buy the, it's a little bit lower quality expeller pressed oil, but all the coconut oil from Tropical Traditions is high quality, comes from the Philippines. I don't worry about whether or not it's organic or not, because in the Philippines they are not spraying. It basically is organic, it's just not certified organic. I think actually Tropical Traditions does have an organic, they have several varieties that you can choose from. They might have one that is organic, I can't remember, but I've never bought the organic one. Anyway, so good quality coconut oil. So we've added 1 cup peanut butter for a doubled recipe, 1/2 cup coconut oil. See, I don't have this recipe memorized, I should. 6 tablespoons of raw organic cacao powder. We talked about cacao powder the other day because it was an ingredient in our cacao latte, the paleo caffeine-free version of Bulletproof Coffee that we made a few days ago. And I am posting all of these Facebook Lives that I'm doing here for our team. I'm uploading them all to YouTube, so you can find them there. That's an easy way to find them later, or if you want to share them with somebody you know who would be interested in the recipes and the dry brushing and all of the things that we've been doing this week during our Master Your Metabolism week. But we did talk about cacao powder and how it's not the same thing as cocoa powder. Cacao powder is more nutritious because it's closer to the source. It all comes from the cacao bean. Cocoa powder, hey Katie, cocoa powder is more refined, more processed, which we want to stay away from. The more processed a food is, the less nutrition it has for us, and the more likely it is to have additives and preservatives and ingredients, things that we don't want to be ingesting. Hey Mary, so remember that you're looking for cacao powder, raw organic cacao powder. It is simply ground up cacao beans, and it has a lot more of those nutrients that our body needs. So you can feel good about eating it. You don't have to feel guilty. And I think I already said that was 6 tablespoons of the cacao powder. Let's see what is next. Honey. I already talked about the honey. Where did I? Here it is. I'm using a scant 1/4 cup of honey, and I'm going to have to scrape that out. And then I need 1 teaspoon of my homemade vanilla. Where did my rubber spatula go? Here it is. Okay, so I'm going to scrape all that honey out, because when you're using the really good honey, you don't want to let any of it go to waste. Hey Jennifer. So I make sure to scrape all of that out. Okay, so now I need 1 teaspoon vanilla. This is my same homemade vanilla that I used the other day in my recycled jar. The recipe for that is on my blog. It's so easy, y'all, to make your own vanilla. It's just vanilla beans that you slice open and vodka. That's all. And then and thyme. You just let it sit for like 4 months-ish. So I always try to keep a batch going of vanilla so I don't run out of it. Okay, so what did I say? 1 teaspoon vanilla. And the flavor is amazing too when you make it yourself from fresh vanilla beans. Okay, vanilla, and then we want a dash of unrefined sea salt. Remember, we talked about this the other day too. You want to make sure that you are not using table salt. I hope you've all made that switch by now. Get rid of your regular table salt and switch over to a good unrefined sea salt. This is the brand that I've used for years. It's Redmond Real Salt. And again, remember, we mentioned this the other day, but the regular table salt is highly processed. It's iodized, bleached, and all of that. It strips real unrefined salt. Oh, Denise said she just bought a cool bottle so she can make her own vanilla. Yay for Denise. That's awesome. Good for you. And you know what I just realized, y'all? I'm going to dart over here and flip off these lights. I remembered to do that the other day, but I forgot to do it today. It helps with the lighting for you on the video. Salt. So your body does not like regular table salt. It is really bad for your health, as I'm sure you know. But because regular table salt has given all salt such a bad rap, people think that this kind of salt is also equally bad for you, but it's actually the opposite. Unrefined sea salt is very nutritious to your body, especially if you have an autoimmune disease, if you have certain health challenges. Your body, all of our bodies, need salt, and they need the trace minerals in real unrefined sea salt. I have mentioned this before. I have a thyroid disease, and so I deliberately try to add unrefined sea salt to my diet because it helps with my thyroid. So anyway, I'll stop talking about that. But this is unrefined sea salt, and I'm just going to kind of sprinkle in a little bit. It's just a dash like that. And then let me just double check my recipe, but I think that's everything. We added the peanut butter, coconut oil, cacao powder, raw honey, vanilla, and sea salt. And that's it, y'all. And then you just blend it in the food processor. I am totally not very experienced with cooking on live camera like this, so I hope this isn't a bad idea to turn this on. It might be kind of loud. I'm going to pulse it for a minute. Oh, that's not too bad, right? I'm just going to pulse it, get everything mixed in there, and now I'm going to turn it on to blend for a minute. I'm going to check it. It's almost done. It's really simple. The main thing is that I want to make sure that the coconut oil doesn't have any like chunks, that it's not liquefying, but that it's kind of combining, dispersing throughout the fudge. So I'm going to just pulse it a little bit more. Want to make sure that the peanut butter and the coconut oil is all distributed. And that's all, guys. That's the fudge. And then, I don't know, we probably don't want to take the time to do this on live camera, because it's a little bit of a process to scrape out the bowl of the food processor. But I have my my dish here. This is an 8x8, and then I have parchment paper. If you don't know about this, unbleached parchment baking paper that is certified chlorine-free. I keep a good supply of that in my kitchen all the time because we use it for so many things. It's way better than using foil or plastic wrap. Even if you do have to use foil or plastic wrap for something, you can use the parchment paper, like line it with parchment paper so that the parchment paper is touching your food and not the aluminum foil or the plastic wrap. Although we don't use much plastic wrap at all at my house. I would like to just throw it out. We've had like the same box of plastic wrap for a couple of years, I feel like, because I use it so infrequently. I try to make sure I'm using other more healthier alternatives. So then you just put the parchment paper, and you know a trick? It took me a while to figure this out. Maybe, hey Dee Dee, maybe you already know this trick, those of you who use parchment paper, but if you don't know this trick, I'm going to save you some hassle and headache and frustration. When you roll out the parchment paper, you know how it has, like, it still wants to roll because it's been in that roll shape that it has formed to the paper, the cardboard tube. So this is my trick, is that you want, whenever you're placing it flat, you want it to roll down. If you lay it like this so that it's going to always want to curl up on itself. I don't know why it took me so long to figure that out, but if you lay the parchment paper so that it's rolling down, it's going to lay much flatter for you and give you a lot less trouble as you work with it. So anyway, then you just kind of, you know, press the parchment paper in and scoop your fudge into the into the dish with the parchment paper. Spread it out. I like to use a rubber spatula usually, or you can use the back of a spoon, whatever. Kind of even it out. And then I have, where did they go? I have some chopped nuts here. I had some random, I think they're walnuts, and I added some almonds. So I wanted to tell you something about nuts, since we're talking all about nutrition this week, and this is my wheelhouse. Nuts. I'm not going to go on and on about this, but I did want to just plant the seed for you and direct you to a blog post on my blog about soaking and drying your nuts. Okay, I don't know if you've heard that raw nuts or nuts that haven't been prepared properly, they contain some anti-nutrients. So what happens is those actually in your body, they're called anti-nutrients because they bind with actual nutrients in your body and they take the actual nutrients out of your body, which is not good, obviously. We want to keep all of our good, healthy nutrients. So the same thing with grains. That's why sometimes grains can be an issue for people. And that's why you might hear about soaking and fermenting grains. And that's what we're doing with the nuts, is we're basically soaking and fermenting them. It helps to break down some of those anti-nutrients and make the nuts more digestible. Your body will have a much better time digesting them, and they will be much more nutritious to your body. It helps to break down some of those anti-nutrients. So anyway, these are and I call them crispy nuts because we soak them overnight in warm water with a little bit of salt, and then we drain them in the morning, and then I use my dehydrator. But before I had a dehydrator, I would just dry them, crisp them in the oven, and all of those instructions are in that post on my blog. The post is called Crispy Nuts, and I'll post all these links for you after the video is over. Oh, you know what I just realized? I forgot to plug my phone over here to my charger. Let me do that so I don't lose y'all. But anyway, these are my chopped nuts that I'm going to add. Sorry. After you spread out your fudge, then you can add whatever you want on top. I'm going to add those chopped nuts. Again, you can use shredded coconut. You can use any different kind of chopped nuts that you like, or dried fruit. Although I try to limit our intake of dried fruit. So that's the fudge, and then you can put it, our recipe that was posted in our group today was called freezer fudge, and the instructions were to put it in the freezer. You can do that. We usually just put ours in the refrigerator. I guess if you put it in the freezer, it will speed up the process of hardening, because right now this is kind of a soft, gooey, like a goop, a fudgy goop, and so obviously you can't eat pieces of that. You want it to firm up. That coconut oil, once it gets cold, is going to solidify and harden and give your fudge a firmer form. Just to point out, this is not something that you want to leave sitting out either. Like when you are ready to serve your fudge, it really needs to be stored in the refrigerator until you are ready to eat it immediately, and then put it back in the refrigerator. Or, you know, like one time we took it to a potluck and I had it in a cooler with ice, and someone in my family didn't realize this about the fudge, and they took it out and left it sitting there for a while for people to help themselves to, and it got really mushy and not good. So you want to keep it chilled in order for it to stay firm. Okay, so that's the fudge. This is a great healthy treat. I mentioned the other day that at my house we love our treats. I just make sure that we are eating healthy treats so that we can feel good about eating them and not have to feel guilty and not have to restrict or limit ourselves with our treats. So this is one of our healthy treats that's in our regular rotation, is this peanut butter fudge. And again, you can use almond butter or sun butter or whatever kind of nut butter you want. And then the other recipe that we're going to talk about is apple sandwiches. How many of you have, or I should ask, how many of you have made a fudge like this before? A freezer fudge or a refrigerator fudge with healthy ingredients like this, the cacao powder and the coconut oil and raw honey, or maybe you used maple syrup. Tell us what you think about the fudge. And then how many of you have made apple sandwiches before? I'm going to show you a little tool that I like to use, but you don't have to have it. Okay, so here is my apple that I'm going to use. This is an apple corer, and this is the kind, obviously you can get, Denise, have you made fudge before? Tell us your fudge experience. You can get those apple cores that will slice your apple for you. I don't have one of those because that wouldn't work for this. I just want to take out the core, but I want the rest of the apple to remain intact. Kathy says the fudge recipe is easy and good. Denise says her fudge was okay, but this one looks a lot better. It is delicious. At least we love it at my house. So we have made apple sandwiches for years, and we also, when we make our own apple chips in the dehydrator, we use the core for that too. We want to take out the core and then slice the apple and then dry them to make apple chips, or for apple sandwiches we use fresh apples, obviously. So we just core the apple like this. Take out the core, and then we're going to slice it. This is all very self-explanatory. I'm sure you guys can figure this out, but sometimes it's just fun to watch somebody do it, right, and give you a little jump start. So who has made an apple sandwich before? Tell me I'm not the only person who has ever cored and sliced an apple to make a sandwich. We actually use these sandwiches. We've gotten out of the habit of doing this. This was actually reminding me, hey Jillian, that we should do this again. But for a long time, when my kids were kind of missing the presence of bread in our meal plan, we would use this as a lunch option. I would make them little apple sandwiches. We would actually we get a healthy lunch meat that we don't eat all the time, but we use it for certain situations. It's from Applegate Farms. It's very minimally processed, and it comes from really healthy animals without antibiotics and all of that. So Applegate Farms ham, so we'll put some of that between the apple slices with some cheese, just like a little sandwich. Sometimes they've even put hummus on it. And we've done different varieties. I'm trying to remember what else we've done. We've definitely done peanut butter before. This is new. I have never done the granola with the peanut butter, so my kids are going to love that. I'm trying to remember what else we have done. I feel like we've done a lot of other things with our apple slices instead of bread for little sandwiches for the kids, and they have loved them. So let me finish slicing up this apple without slicing off my finger. I like to make sure that the slices are sturdy and sort of thick. Okay, so there are the apple slices, and then Kathy's saying it never occurred to her to use apple as bread substitute. Do you bite it just like a sandwich? Seems like it would fall apart. No, it totally doesn't fall apart because the apple is crisp, You just have to hold it, just like a hamburger, you have to hold it with your fingers and then take a bite, and the kids love it, and it's an awesome delicious snack for grown-ups too. So okay, so I'm gonna use, let's see, these two look really sturdy. This one is actually probably a little thicker than because I'm trying to do it on the side here, I didn't make very good slices, but these will work well because they're nice and thick and sturdy. So in this bowl I've already added some peanut butter, and I didn't even measure this. It was the rest of my jar of organic peanut butter left over from the fudge that we just made. So here I have our own homemade granola. I have an awesome granola recipe on the blog. I actually haven't made this in a while, but we go in and out of spurts. Often, there have been times in the past when we make it probably about every 2 weeks. We make a huge batch of it, and we use it for breakfast, we use it for snacks. I always make it in the summer, or if we're going on a road trip, because it travels really well, and it's a great, like if we're going to the beach, if we have a beach trip, it makes a great easy breakfast. I'm dairy free, so I use coconut milk with my granola in a bowl, and we like to add berries, or we will add raisins if we don't have any fresh fruit. And then my kids use regular whole, the almost raw milk that we buy. Anyway, so you just add some of this. I'm totally winging this recipe. Let's see what our recipe says. This is the recipe that's posted in our group. It says 1/2 cup peanut butter and 1/2 cup granola. So approximately equal. So I probably need to add some more granola here then. But it doesn't really matter because, like I said, we've done just straight peanut butter on our apple slices. So adding in some granola just gives it a little extra fun nutrition and some crunch, which I don't know about you. I already said I love crunchy peanut butter. I love a good crunch. While I'm mixing this up, let's take a vote. Kathy says granola is a good topping for smoothie bowls too. Yes, so many awesome things you can do with granola. And my granola is grain free. It's all nuts. I mentioned the other day that I do in general try to avoid grains, including oats. So there are no oats in this granola. It's seeds and nuts, and my homemade vanilla and some cinnamon. And speaking of cinnamon, you can add a drop of cinnamon oil to your granola and peanut butter. I'm going to do that. Just one drop. Sometimes it's hard to get just one drop, but cinnamon is really strong, so I really only want one drop in here. So I'm going to stir that around, mix that up, and then it's really easy, y'all. You just spread it between the apples. And in the picture with the recipe that was posted, they got all fancy and made a double-decker. I think it would be really hard to get a double-decker apple sandwich in your mouth. So I'm just going to do a single layer. And I should have pointed out, and I probably should have done this because my kids are outside right now and I don't know when they're going to eat these, but the apple slices, if you're not going to serve them immediately, you can have a bowl of water, waiting cold water with a couple of drops of lemon oil in it, and you can just dunk the apple slices in the lemon water to help keep them from browning. So I did not do that, so these might brown a little bit, but that's okay. So anyway, that's it. There's your apple sandwich with the peanut butter, granola, 1 drop of cinnamon oil, and the apples. It's totally paleo, totally grain-free, super healthy. It's got your protein and your fruit. I love this idea, and my kids are going to be excited, and I bet once they try it, this is something that kids can totally make on their own. I bet they're going to make this themselves for a fun afternoon snack, and it's equally delicious for grown-ups. So easy, y'all. We made one healthy treat, our chocolate peanut butter fudge, and then we have our apple peanut butter granola sandwiches. So there you go. That's our DIY for today on this last day of Master Your Metabolism. I am actually going to, after I finish the video and share it to our group, who's going to try the apple recipe? I'm seeing lots of yum comments here. Raise your hand. I need more water. Raise your hand if you're totally going to try the apple sandwich snack idea, either for yourself or kids or grandkids, or husbands or roommates or whoever. Who's going to try the apple granola peanut butter sandwich recipe? And who's going to try the fudge recipe? It's so easy, right? Your family will love this fudge. It keeps really well in the fridge. Everybody we've ever served it to has loved it. Mary's going to do the apple sandwiches. I'm waiting. I don't know why the comments are so delayed for Facebook Live. I'm sorry, y'all, but I'll stall a little bit and say I hope you guys have loved Master Your Metabolism this week. It's been awesome for me, a great way to kind of solidify some of the goals that I've been working on, especially at the beginning of the year like this after the holidays, and it's winter time, which can be kind of Jillian's going to do the apple sandwiches too, which can be kind of a down in the dumps kind of time because it's harder to get outside and move our bodies. It's cold. It's, sometimes after the holidays there can be a little bit of a slump too, just emotionally. So I know it's a hard time of year. This has been great timing for me. Denise is going to make it. Katie says her kids are going to love the apple sandwiches. Oh, Mary says the reception is going on and off. I'm not getting any sign of that from my end. Mary, I wonder if it's on your end. Is anyone else having trouble with the reception going in and out? Usually if I lose my recording function, it tells me, and I'm not seeing that. But anyway, I'm going to sign off for this, but I want to let you know that I'm going to jump right back on with a little wrap up for Master Your Metabolism. I wanted to separate these videos so I can post them separately for everybody, but stick around because I'm going to share this video and then I'm going to quickly start a new video and do a little recap and wrap up our week of Master Your Metabolism. All right, y'all, so I'm signing off for our fudge and apple sandwiches, and I'll be right back. But happy oiling, everybody. Happy weekend. Happy Friday.